Fierce fighting for Donbass continues. The Russians shot, among others, the villages of Avdiivka, Torezhk, Bakhmut, Soledar, and Mykolaiivka. The occupiers attacked targets in the Donetsk region with the use of aviation, artillery, and Grad and Uragan missile sets. The situation on the battlefield has not changed significantly over the last 24 hours. Fierce fighting continues in the Donbass and in the Kharkiv region. The struggle for the south of our country continues. On July 28th, Russian troops carried out precise shelling of the so-called filter camp in Olenivka in eastern Ukraine, where Ukrainian prisoners of war from Azovstal were held. Several dozen people died as a result of the attack. An international investigation into the massacre is ongoing. According to preliminary data from international experts, Ukrainian prisoners of war in the so-called Russian filter camp in Olenivka in eastern Ukraine were killed with thermobaric weapons. The area of Kherson is the weakest section of the Russian front. This is where the Ukrainians are focusing their counteroffensive. Kherson now has a symbolic and psychological significance for Ukrainians who need victories. So far, they have managed to take control of the Russian logistics and transport routes in the occupied territories of the Kherson Oblast. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Zbigniew Rau, is in Kiev visiting Bucha, which was destroyed by the Russian army. The chief of Polish diplomacy also plans to meet with the highest authorities of Ukraine, headed by President Volodymyr Zelensky. We are determined to stay in Ukraine and support it in overcoming its challenges, as well as assisting in post-war rebuilding and reconstruction. I am convinced that the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe will play a key role in this process. As previously announced, U.S. President Joe Biden has approved another aid package for Ukraine worth $550 million. It will include missiles for HIMARS sets and 155mm artillery. The new military aid package from the U.S. is another investment in the security of NATO's eastern flank and support for democracy in the European Union. Our artillerymen are ready to turn night into day to expel the Russian invaders from Ukraine. Thank you to President Biden and the U.S. Secretary of Defense. Meanwhile, the first vessel to export Ukrainian grain to world markets will be anchored in Istanbul tonight. According to the agreement between Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the UN, at least one ship per day is to depart from the port of Odessa and two other Ukrainian ports. A ship with a load of 26,000 tons of corn left Odessa on Monday, but it is hard to believe that Russia will not try to cut off Ukrainian exports. Russia has consistently caused hunger in African and Asian countries, which have traditionally imported a lot of Ukrainian goods. And now, in conditions of extreme heat in Europe, the price crisis and shortage of food are also threatening some European countries. 16 more ships are ready to go. We are ready to make an appropriate contribution to the stabilization of the global food market.
The ships that will go in and out of Odessa port will be done. Those decisions will be taken by the port authorities of Odessa in terms of how much space they have on the berths. Obviously, there are a number of ships that have been in Odessa for quite some time. So, it would be fair to say that the port is congested. As soon as they give the clearance for more ships to come in, those ships will come in. But those will be commercial decisions and operational decisions taken by the Odessa port. The framework that we have will be there to facilitate that movement of ships both in and out with the inspection regime that we've talked about.
Each day of delay in the transport of Ukraine agricultural produce is a risk of hunger in African countries, but also losses counted in millions for Ukrainian farmers. We had a good harvest of various grains this year. We were satisfied, but we are only now starting to sell our grain, and we have to pay taxes and bear the current costs. In September, we need to start sowing the crops that we want to harvest in 2023. And at the moment, we cannot do that because we are unable to sell our grain, which now costs 2 to 3 times less than it did before the war. During the 5 months of the war, more than 20 million tons of grain were stuck in Ukraine. The consequences of a supply interruption are felt around the world and are exacerbating the food crisis. The ship bound for the Lebanese port of Tripoli is carrying only 26,000 tons of corn. Odessa alone currently has 17 ships docked with a total cargo of 600,000 tons of grain.